In August, Parliament concluded its interview for qualifying members to sit on the SABC board. The 12 recommended names were then sent to President Jacob Zuma to finalise the process. In that period, the interim board's term expired on Tuesday last week, and President Jacob Zuma has said he is still considering. Now, yesterday, Communications Minister Ayanda Dlodlo said the delay is due to a misunderstanding between her department and the Presidency, and the Presidency was under the impression that her department was working on issues that would help President Jacob Zuma. Kate Skinner, an independent broadcasting researcher who has done a lot of lobby work for the SABC, is in studio with us now to just talk a little bit about what's been unfolding lately. Good to see you, Kate. Thanks so much for coming in.
It's good to be here.
All right, so what do you make of this current situation? The board was meant to be chosen. It's now over a week that it has that we've been waiting. The interim board has gone. I mean, I think in the intro I kind of explained it quite well. What are your views?
Yes, I mean, I think it's a very, very problematic situation, and I think that it's very curious that the president isn't actually appointing the board, because they don't really seem to be good and valid reasons for this. I mean, I think that the issue is important that we've got to make sure that these new board members don't obviously have criminal record, that obviously their qualifications are all verified. But let's be clear, the Parliament actually did that whole process. Then those names were submitted to the President, and he had 3 weeks to look at those names and again do reference checks. I mean, I was listening to an interview on a radio station, Power, and basically the Minister was saying, well, we're checking, for instance, whether people have got matric qualifications. We're checking whether, in terms of criminal records, issues around traffic offences. Those do not seem to be valid reasons. So that it opens up the question, what are the reasons that the President is not actually appointing this board? Because, the SABC is in such a financial crisis, it doesn't have permanent executives. I mean, this is a moment where we need our permanent board in place, and so much good has happened under the interim board. So we need our permanent board in place, and they don't seem to, in a nutshell, be good reasons why they're not being appointed.
When you look at the selection process
Yes.
of the board members, do you have any bells ringing in your head and saying,
No.
I'm not sure about this one, maybe not? I mean,
No.
From your perspective, the board, the names that have been put forward, do you think that they are good to serve on the board?
Absolutely. And I think what was interesting was that it was a very transparent process. And in fact, the CVs were put up on the website. Civil society looked at those. The MPs did an incredibly good job. I mean, all of those interviews were public interviews.
Yeah.
So they really, no bells are ringing. And so that's why I think it's so curious that we're spending so much time on vetting this, given the fact that, Parliament has already done it, civil society's done it, there's been huge transparency. So then, as I say, it opens up the question, what is the real reason why we don't have a board in place?
Yeah. I mean, we look at the work that the interim board has done here at the SABC. I think they were in place for 6 months. 6 months.
Yes.
That came to an end last Tuesday. From the work that they've done, have you noticed a difference? Do you think they've done a good job to start turning the organisation around?
Absolutely. I mean, I think they've done an incredible job in an incredibly short space of time. They've put out the job adverts. They've made sure that they've been very transparent about the financial crisis. They've done an incredibly good job around the editorial policies. It's been a consultative process in line with all the legislation. And my sense in terms of speaking to people that work at the SABC, there's been a kind of sense of like, a Prague Spring, green shoots, people becoming excited again about the SABC being a public broadcaster, which it is, and which it must be.
Yeah. So, I can attest for that. There has been a very much a turnaround in people's emotions and feelings within the organisation, and doing their work has become more pleasurable. But is this now putting a bit of a dampener on it? The fact that there's all these question marks now, where we were thinking things were going smoothly, the process was looking good. These delays, what are they going to do to the SABC?
Well, the thing is, it's interesting because, there was a statement sent out by BMAU, with one of the biggest unions in the SABC, and they were basically saying, this is putting a massive dampener on our morale. And we've gone through so many crises. We needed to have stability. And also, I think that it's important to say, there are particular critical moments where things can be turned around, and this is one of those moments, and therefore it is so important that the permanent board was put in place, particularly around the financial issues, in terms of getting the government guarantee or the bailout, which the SABC needs, because it's not a going concern in terms of the finances.
Yeah. I mean, the communications minister obviously coming out and speaking about this and saying, and I'll have a look, just quoting what she said, was that the last permanent board's parliament recommendations left President Zuma embarrassed due to failure to do proper checks and the MDDA case of board members who had criminal records. Is this not a legitimate reason?
Well, look, I mean, of course, we've got to check board members. I mean, there's absolutely, there's no question about that. But the thing is that, what I'm questioning is the fact that we have had, a very transparent process, very rigorous process in Parliament. Further to that, the President has had a further 3 weeks. And there don't seem to be any good reasons. I mean, when what the minister has sort of said is, maybe matric qualifications are a problem, maybe there are traffic offences that some of these members have. Those are not good reasons for not moving ahead to appoint a board. I mean, the issue around matric is that a number of these candidates actually have postgraduate qualifications. They have several degrees. So getting the actual certificate of matric when you've already got many postgraduate degrees, it doesn't make sense. I think that's the issue. There has been huge vetting around it. There are no bells ringing, and therefore people start to ask, well, please go ahead. This institution is in crisis. It needs its board. There are no good reasons for it not being put in place.
And it needs good leadership, because that's what everybody is complaining about, the fact that we do not have a board. Many of the management are in acting positions.
Absolutely.
So
all your executives are in acting positions. And I think the Auditor General also made a very important point. The Auditor General said one of the reasons why the SABC is in such a financial crisis is because of a lack of leadership. So precisely these issues. So what we're doing is we're continuing those issues, and the AG has been so clear, the Auditor General has been so clear, we need permanent leadership in place. We need the board in place and those executives in place.
So my question to you now is just to get an understanding. If there is an individual that's been nominated for the board and the President doesn't confirm this, doesn't like the name, can Parliament challenge it? What is the course of action from now on? I mean, say the President signs it and everything is smooth, they're appointed and that's the board. But if he has a problem and says, no, I don't want this person on my board, what's going to happen then?
Well, it's interesting because the Broadcasting Act is very clear that the only role that the President has actually is choosing the chair and the deputy chair. So this is new territory. We've never been in a position where the President has actually not gone ahead and actually appointed a board. My sense is that what Parliament would need to do is, the only reason why he could send it back is because of lack of due process, but not because this particular candidate I don't like this candidate, for instance. That's not the role. The role is only to choose the chair and the deputy chair, and obviously, if there was anything in terms of due process. But the process has been extremely transparent. There have been no problems.
So basically, there's no provision on the Broadcasting Act that refers to this.
The Broadcasting Act does not refer to this because the understanding is that the Parliament does that very rigorous selection process, which they've done, and then it goes to the President. The President chooses the chair and the deputy chair and appoints the board. So that's the understanding.
How can the SABC continue running without a board?
Well, this is unprecedented. We've never been in this situation before where the President hasn't appointed a board. Obviously, you've got your acting executives in place, and they would continue. But I think it's now the situation where Parliament, civil society needs to actually push and say, we can't be in this situation because it's actually operating illegally.
Yeah, which is a big problem. We've actually got a clip that we want to show you, and perhaps you can give us a little bit of a response. We've got our SABC, the acting CEO. Here's a message. Take a look. This is what she had to say about the current situation.
Sure. I would just like to assure staff and the public at large that We're in the process of implementing an approved corporate plan, and we're not going to deviate from that because that's a blueprint that was left by the interim board. So there is nothing drastic that's going to happen in the next month. We are really sticking to the lane, and I would really just want everybody not to panic.
All right, some reassurance from Nomvula, who's our acting CEO. What do you make of that? I mean, can that be the situation?
Look, I mean, obviously, it's important for her to put across a message which is don't panic. I mean, that's very important because this is an unbelievably important institution. But I think we also need to say that actually, interestingly, in terms of those acting people, their contracts end on the 12th of October.
Yeah, and that's next week.
That's next week. And
so we have to act fast.
You have to act fast. Civil society has to act fast. And the president simply has to make the appointment because it becomes a deeper and deeper crisis if he doesn't.
Just on a final note, last week I think that one of the big questions, or was it this week? I get my weeks confused these days, so much happens.
Yeah.
But there was the talk of the president meeting with some of the editorial staff, the head of news and editors here at the SABC, which was a big concern. That, of course, was denied by the presidency. And it was just the presidential spokesperson who said he had a routine meeting with some of the editors and the SABC News. A lot of people saying, what's routine about this? And is that fine for something like that to happen?
Well, the thing is that, I mean, if the president's spokesperson was meeting with all the media and having briefings, I think it would look less strange. But given the crisis that we have at the moment and the president, not making the appointment, it does make people think, well, you're shifting in a state broadcaster direction.
Yeah. All right. What would you like to see happening? Are you liking what you're seeing at the SABC currently?
You know what? When I look at the content and I look at what's coming out, I'm liking it. I'm feeling that there is definitely a change. There's a freshness. There's a kind of independence that is really heartening. And I don't want to see that die. And so what I would like to see is actually civil society, SABC workers saying, no, please, Mr. President, we need our board in place. This is a very critical institution for all of us, and all of us just being absolutely determined that there is no way around this other than that the board is put in place.
All right, we leave it there. Kate, thanks for talking to us. Kate Skinner is an independent broadcasting researcher and talking to us about the SABC board's impasse. And, of course, this has left the organisation without a board currently. Nomvula, however, as you heard, the SABC acting group CEO said there's nothing to worry about and that staff must just relax and not panic. So there you go. That's the situation here at the SABC. Let's take a break. And after this, we're going to talk about something very important, cervical cancer. Stay tuned.